will in a minute. I really don't know what I'm doing when it comes to technology, I have to say. So this is all a huge experiment for me.
You're all
But you know what? You would think after a year or a year and more of this that we would all know how to do it. But oh my God, no. So
that pesky mute button is still winning the day.
You know, it's in charge, that's for sure. Hello, Dasha.
Hello.
Thank you for being with us.
Absolutely.
I'm going to introduce Arts Wisconsin and Creative Wisconsin Month, and then I'll introduce you, and then we'll get going.
Sounds good.
So, for everyone out there in Facebook land and Zoom land, I'm Ann Katz. I'm Director of Arts Wisconsin. We're the state's community cultural development organization. We are all about the arts, culture, and creativity for everyone, everywhere in the state. And we work very hard to speak up and lead the way for economic vitality, education for the 21st century, vibrant communities, and engaged residents, and all in the realm of creativity. And I'll just say that because I forgot to make this a webinar, it's a meeting. So if you are on this session, just mute. How do you say this? You mute your face. Not that we don't want to see you, but this is Dasha's show. So thank you, Sharon. Arts Wisconsin has been around since the early 90s, and we have been speaking up and working for the arts, culture, and creativity for a long time. And this is our first ever Creative Wisconsin Month. We have done many conferences and sessions and legislative days over the years, mostly in person, because because we are still virtual and hopefully won't be for that much longer. We have the opportunity to share things that are happening in the arts all through the month of April. There's so much going on that we need a month to share it. So Creative Wisconsin Month starts today. We celebrate the diversity and variety of Wisconsin's arts and creative sector. We demonstrate the ways that creativity revitalizes communities across the state, and we're sharing those stories with the people of Wisconsin. So we have very generous sponsors that have made this possible. There's a lot going on during the month. Check our website, artswisconsin.org. And we keep thinking of more things to do, so I just keep putting them into the month. So please engage as much as you can. Everything will be is recorded. It'll all be on Facebook and the website. So this is the first thing that we're doing in the month, and I'm very happy to introduce Dasha Kelly Hamilton, Wisconsin's 9th Poet Laureate. Is that right?
I believe so.
I think you are. Dasha is a writer, performance artist, and creative change agent, applying the creative process to facilitate dialogues around human and social wellness. She's the author of 3 poetry collections, 4 spoken word albums, and 2 novels. She's taught on college campuses and professional conferences, in K-12 classrooms, has performed on HBO's Deaf Poetry Jam, and around the world. And her nonprofit, the Still Waters Collective, has created platforms for thousands of voices to be honored and heard. In 2016, she was named Artist of the Year by the City of Milwaukee. In 2019, she was named Milwaukee's 11th Poet Laureate, and you will be Milwaukee's Poet Laureate for the rest of the year. Mm-hmm. And in 2021, this year, she was chosen as the Poet Laureate, the 9th Poet Laureate by the Poet Laureate Commission. So we're very pleased that Dasha is here with us to kick off Creative Wisconsin Month. So Dasha, can we start with your work? Can we start with one of your pieces?
Absolutely. When we had this conversation about claiming a day, Creative Month, let's just go, well, we'll negotiate, right? The first piece that came to my mind was a piece that I wrote as a creative and for the creatives when the world closed, and what a difference 6 hours can make. You know, everyone has their story, and mine is, it was a Wednesday, and by lunchtime, my calendar for the year was wiped out, as were my friends who are musicians and who teach in schools and who are dancers and who are public speakers. And the list goes on and on and on. And we are all in this a year later. And this piece initially captured that fear of, oh my goodness, I should have gone into accounting after all. And then we remember why we have chosen this work and these words. So this piece is called Creatives. The fathers have been wrong. Neither wits nor years have been wasted. Loosely spent, perhaps, scattered and prayed over. Rejoice the harvest. Turns out the mothers were right about rainy days, though, about positioning barrels under the sky, about dreams plummeting and evaporating. Curse the drought. Never mind the second cousins, the supervisors, in-laws, pew-mates, classmates, the warm-hearted ex, unconvinced and unimpressed, ever concerned under the breath. Condescension is a learned language, ill-fitted for the expanse of their genuine affection. Cherish the village. Gather the creatives, muscles taught from bending humanity into open windows and carpet rides. Harness our wattage of will, carrying narratives from the perimeter to conversation centers. We vibrate with imagination, with abandon, with reverence and arduous hope. Honor our breath.
I wish I had an applause machine. I need one of those. Oh, wonderful. Thank you. We never would have wished for a pandemic, but look what we've gotten out of it.
True.
And so that leads me into some questions that I want to ask you, and we'll just have a conversation. So how has your past work led up to you being poet laureate, and how is it informing how you are poet laureate?
Interesting. In living this double laureate life, so my work in the city has been work in the city, meaning it hasn't been me scribbling my favorite poems and only sharing them in academic halls and on stages and such. It really has been about making space for young folks and not so young folks. And my favorite spaces are people who didn't know that they were poets or needed poetry in their lives. So that becomes a focus of making space for people to listen, making space for people to be heard, giving folks the invitation to take these ideas and just unravel them a bit, because we all have these ideas that need to be unraveled, these memories, these hurts, these excitements. And so because my art of creating art, I also the art of creating space, of creating experiences, which I'm fully confident, which is how I earned the Artist of the Year award. So yes, the art that I was creating and the art of making other people recognize their own selves as art too. So because that's what I pour into the work, it's had me in a range of conversations, communities, conferences, committees. I've been all over the place with these little poems that are never little poems. And how it informs my work is the same. You know, people, what do you want to do? I want to do what I've been able to do with less angst, right? Of leaning into using this process of creativity, of writing poems, of finding fresh ways to articulate the things that we all feel and know. And they happen to be poems along the way. So how to create opportunities that are building discussions, that are elevating voices, that are making pockets of fresh air where there haven't been for a long time. So I wanted to continue doing that. And that's what I love most about blending my work as a writer and my platform as a lover of words. People are in the middle of all of those things.
Embedded, right? Well, that's good. My next question was going to be, what's your vision for being poet laureate? But you've given it to us. You know, you've it's about people. It's about places. It happens to be poetry.
Sure.
I like that.
I do have a specific project.
Happens to be. Yes, tell me.
Yeah, I do have a specific project.
That's my next question.
As a city laureate coming into the role the pandemic happened right before Poetry Month. So right when we're had these things set up and we're about to get going. And of course we had to pivot and like everyone else figure out how to do this differently. So fortunately, my interest as a city laureate was also about conversations. So what I had proposed was a series of discussions, which would have been in person, they've been digital now, called poemologues. And it's basically a facilitation structure of getting people in place to have conversations that surprise them too, right? Because you can invite people to a panel and folks who panel, you already have your 9 bullet points of what you're going to say. So you're sharing information, but that's different from having a discussion. So, and that's really going well. And with the state laureate, building an opportunity for us to do a poetry exchange. So out of all of the outreach work that I've done throughout my work of going into these streets, I've been going to prison. I love saying that. I've been going to prison for over 15, 16 years. So this would be a poetry exchange between traditional Wisconsin residents and residents of Wisconsin state prisons. And at the baseline, I'll have a set of prompts. People will write to those prompts and it'll be a distribution model. So for people's safety and concern, because if you don't know, like when I first went into going to volunteer into prisons, I had every prison film in my head running running in snippets before you get inside this razor wire in this institution and you see this sea of folks in their institutional jumpsuits or uniforms. And then as you continue talking, everybody used to be 7. Everybody has a favorite candy.
Everybody was a baby.
Everybody's a baby. Everybody has a favorite candy. Everybody has food that they won't eat. And you were reminded that these are people in these buildings, regardless of how these people got there. That's a whole nother conversation of the how and the why and what happens. But let's remember that there are artists in these buildings too. And some that don't, just like outside, didn't know that they needed and wanted poems in their lives. So at the baseline, I'm really excited about the coalition part in particular. So it's not going to be me necessarily gathering up all the poems, but building conversations with these correctional institutions, with reentry programs, with formerly incarcerated folks, with writing programs, with universities, and on and on and on. So there are apprentices, there's a job training component. So I'm really excited about what's possible, all at the core of trading poems.
Right. So what have you done so far? You've been poet laureate for 2 months?
2 whole months, right? A lot of Zooming.
2 whole months.
2 whole months.
A lot of Zooming.
Right. A lot of Zooming.
You've been all over the state Zooming.
All over the state Zooming. But what's interesting though is, and I mentioned being able to have this platform in this space where at the top of the year, it's like, okay, well, I can focus. I don't have to do 20 things. I can just do 8. It's a process, Anne. It's a process. We'll get down to one.
I got to think about that.
I know we'll get down to
not
1 or 2.
20 things.
I know, not 20 things, but 8. Down to 2 or 3. That may happen for me one day, but just that as this window of really being able to pour into the next steps. I was given great advice by the commission to spend the first part of the year sharing the vision, explaining what it is, building this coalition. And I felt it in my body, as many of the folks who are watching who are involved in these creative endeavors, or you have a nonprofit, we have to be inefficient, right? Where you're building the road as you're walking it because of resources, because of support, because of misconceptions, because of all the attention being poured into the other, not even so much about life, but in terms of the understanding of the work that we do as creatives, the energy that nonprofits pour into our economy, the effort and the talent that it takes to put on a quilting circle. Those skill sets and those impacts aren't valued the same. So we have to work 5 times as hard for less. So to be in a space where it's not building the road and walking it at the same time, I can focus on building the road and then walk it. Imagine. So I'm excited about having a little breath to really be able to build this
Right.
with longevity in mind, and in creative endeavors, just in the environment that we are in our state. But I know that with the work that you and Arts Wisconsin are leading, that will continue to improve. So spending this time of building it and getting people excited about it, explaining it, and not having to throw it together, it feels great. So I'm speaking as creative, as a recovering nonprofit person. So all of those things
recovering.
Yeah, all of those things are, I think, are braided in the work that we do in the state. So far it's been fantastic. So I'm meeting people that I'm surprised that we haven't coordinated projects before, but
Where were you in my life before, right? I totally understand that. Every day there's something like, wow, I didn't know you existed.
Mm-hmm. So it's been setting up that project in advance of the project part. There's still poems that need to happen. So monthly I do a stream conversation introducing two people from two parts of the state. We use one line of poetry to fall into an unexpected conversation. So far it's been, we've had a librarian from Milwaukee with a retired librarian from the Racine Correctional. We've spoken with Lieutenant Governor Barnes and a freshman legislator out of Green Bay, Christina Shelton. We're going to speak with a former poet laureate and an 11-year-old poet next week. So I've been lining up those conversations. So every first Wednesday, there'll be people from across the state in these cool conversations. I think they're cool. I've been enjoying them so far.
You could do that every day, and you would not have enough time to have the interesting conversations that you can have. Absolutely. Which you will do anyway. You know what? When you were saying that you're building the road, usually while walking on it, but building the road now and then walking on it, I'm thinking that you're also we are all in a moment in time, and you're doing this work in a moment in time where we've all been building the road, the pandemic road, for the last year, having absolutely no idea how to build it. Every day we think we've built it, and then it turns out that is actually not the way it should be built, or whatever. Yeah. So you layer that on top of or with what you're doing, and that just makes it, what a moment in time to be doing this work.
Agreed.
We need to
We're built for it, though.
Yeah, and what you're getting to do is helping all of us try to understand this moment in time, which is which is pretty much unimaginable. Yet here we are, and we need our artists and poets and creative people to help us. I don't know, figure it out is even too much, but just help us think about it. So
to be present in it. To be present in the moment. So I had talked to someone recently, and we were talking about next, right? So that people are getting vaccinated, summer's coming, people are already planning. We have this vision of what this light at the tunnel is going to deliver to us. Yes,
right.
But what are we meeting that light with? Right. So we spent a whole year in a lot of meditation and a lot of new conversations, and we've all been recalibrated in a way. So being open to, just being the moment, and the creatives from the very beginning, people that are making their sourdough bread, to folks who have been doing the coloring and the watercolors and all of the music we've been able to take in with the verses and the live performances. We're reminded that we've got this pulse that doesn't always align with what's happening on the news, what's happening in our timeline. We just get to be reminded to be people, to love, to cry, to be afraid, to be alone, to all the things. So art reminds us to do all those things. And we've been reminded to be people in the midst of all that when you couldn't be an executive, and you couldn't be the basketball coach, and you couldn't be those other elements, you're still a person.
Things you thought you were.
Things you thought you were. I love that. Yeah.
There's another poem. Do you have another poem for us, by the way?
You write that down.
This seems like a perfect moment for another poem. Gosh, I keep trying to think what are we learning from this moment in time, and this is this is the road we're on. I'm,
Mhm.
we'll books and books and books and poems and poems and poems will be written about this moment in time while we're living it. So you know how you said to your grandparents, what was it like living during the Depression? Well, what was it like living during the pandemic? That's what your grandchildren will say to you.
That's right.
So, yeah. So feel free to break into poetry at any time, by the
Oh,
way, if you wanna give us
you mean like a
another piece.
musical? Oh, you are bringing all of
Sure,
my
it's time
lifetime
to
dreams
sing.
coming true right now.
But anytime you want to give us a poem, we'll be happy to listen to that.
I will, I will, I will. So this perfectly when the things color first the world started to melt, we were received this invitation to writers across the state to respond to a prompt about hope. And so shortly, this was the next season of this pandemic year that we will be talking to our grandkids about. Once we are slightly over the shock of being cooped or sheltered into our homes, then we get to watch a Black man get murdered on the news by a police officer and feel the country erupt in a way that was frustratingly familiar and profoundly new. And we're in the broils of that. So to get a request
And now
about
we're
writing a
reliving
piece
it
about
again right
hope,
now.
yeah, a piece about hope, okay. But I remember the part specifically was it was prompted by an Emily Dickinson line.
Hmm.
Right now, Emily Dickinson, right now, we're gonna Emily, but I understood hope was the reach. And because I experienced this world we're in through this lens of all the things, being a woman, being a Black woman, being an educated Black woman, being an educated Black woman who's an artist, an educated Black woman who's an artist who lives in the Midwest, the list goes on and on. My first question is, really, Emily Dickinson right now? But we take these inspirations, and the way it works, the universe gives you what you need. So Emily Dickinson, rest her soul, gave me what I needed. Hope is a bruise. Paintball pellets batter shoulders and thighs at 190 miles per hour. I count the purplish bruises and smile at the post-vision of us, toasting, laughing, being vibrantly alive. The woman who pierced my nose rushed outside for a cigarette afterwards. Now, whether my nostril or her nerves were to blame, we both survived an ordeal that day. I don't think of the sweat on her lip or the tears on my cheek when my jeweled Black nose disrupts canonical spaces. Agony delineates childbearing from child rearing. Pain is the anticipated toll, the impossible stretch of skin and orifice, the wrenching of organs, the pinch and nip of nursing. I received no pamphlets about the pains or panic and impotence when that deep marrow rupture of that ache exposing beyond your reach, a formation of police fired rubber bullets at my child. 200 feet per second in defense of hatred and spiteful ignorance. She raged back in defense until her throat rasped, her heels blistered, and she shattered into sobs once safe inside our home, in my arms. They gassed and maced my baby. And she marched again the next day, and the next, and the next, and the next. Hope is a bruise, a nervous smoke, and an unrelenting Calvary.
That's good. Thank you for that.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a moment in time. Yeah, and we need poetry. And I really like what you said about, the people that don't know they're poets. That's the majority of people out there. I'm not an artist. I'm not a poet. I'm not a singer. No, I can't dance. But we all say that, and really, it's amazing what people are doing. What people can do with encouragement, sometimes without encouragement.
Mm-hmm.
They can't help themselves, right? They can't help that humanness, that creative humanness, which is what keeps us going. So So let's see, what else? Oh gosh, so what else can I ask you? So being poet laureate, are you engaging? I know the Poet Laureate Commission is a great supporter and
Mhm.
advocate for what you're doing. And you said they have, good advice and stuff, and they're helping to get you out there as well as all your contacts. Are you engaging with poets on the national level? And are you involved in any national poetry month activities?
Sure. Not any activities. And in terms of engagement with other poets across the country, not officially. So I would imagine for me personally, I would be in a better space to do that coming out of the summer. One, because a project will be in place and I'll just have the capacity to be able to, because right now I'm still getting my bearings. But one of the groups
Right.
I did have a chance to fall into, there's a group of Black poet laureates across the country, and we fell into this Facebook group, and we had
Yeah.
a conversation. I call them Zoomeries. We had a Zoomery sometime in January. It was interesting. It was like,
That's a good
okay,
word.
everyone, this is fantastic, and we'll see everybody again in May, all right? Because we've got Black History Month, and then there's Women's History Month, and there's Poetry Month, and we're busy. So this is a busier season, but I'm looking forward to making those connections. There have been outreaches from the Academy of Poets, so there's a place to start, but I'll start reaching out and making those relationships probably in the summer and the fall.
I know you've got a long list of all the things you want to do.
Yeah,
Let's go, let's go.
I do want to share with you also, when you mentioned the idea of creativity and what the artists are doing. People say, I'm not an artist, I'm not creative. And I've been on that soapbox for a while. And a lot of it came from going into classrooms, and then it's been being a part of different community development or engagement initiatives and just talking to other folks. And I've started to see this theme, and I would remind people, you are creative. Now, you may not be an artist, but you are creative. That's the way brains work. Everyone is creative.
Right.
So, and I'm finding that the more we can lean into conversations about creativity, and art falls under that, but creativity is strategy, creativity is outreach, creativity is problem solving, creativity is, like we were talking about, has kept everybody relatively sane through this endeavor. And so I'm also a Rubinger Fellow this year. So I'm one of 10 national fellows who have been identified and selected to continue with social entrepreneurship, with community engagement, with some project, some wild idea that we have been committed to. And we launched the Neighborhood Creatives in Residence 2 years ago. And so this fellowship, spending this year talking in Zooms again, talking with industries and companies and municipal leaders about how to create a training program for neighborhoods and businesses, because I have found that they want to engage creativity, they just don't know how. So if you don't have someone who is a acclaimed professional creative, again, different from being an artist, in your ranks, when we talk about creativity to business folks, they're going to automatically go to, I don't dance, I don't paint, I don't sing.
Oh, that's
We don't
nice,
need
but that's not
dancers,
for
we don't
me.
need painters, we don't need singers. We can use a sculpture in our lobby. No, you need someone with a creative brain to come and help you solve all this stuff. So this fellowship is a way to give professional development, to apply creative strategy. So creatives can learn how to do this work and get these contracts, and businesses and institutions can expand the solutions available to them already on the work that they're already doing. So I'm really excited about all of these things braiding into.
Oh, it's like it's all like swirling around your head.
It's all coming. The best part, Anne, we started this discussion with what are the things that I've done that have led to shape this moment. My husband and I have this running joke where I just kind of turn around and pull off this imaginary bookshelf, or maybe it's an apothecary. I haven't decided yet. But this is work I've been doing for 20 years. These are projects that we have talked about for years. These are partnerships and ideas that I've been able to be in dialogue with people in other organizations about for years, and the time is now. And I'm
Now
ready,
you have,
and these
you have the
organizations are
structure.
ready. We are
Yeah,
ready.
you have a structure to be able to realize them, at least some of them, and then
Some
we'll
of
keep
them.
building. Yeah,
Now
well,
that
there's,
we're all ready
it's
for
all,
creativity, the creatives are ready to walk through the door.
that's for sure. That's for sure. So do you have any in-person things scheduled this year yet? Have you had your shots?
I've had one shot. I get my second one
Yeah.
in a couple of weeks. I don't have anything in
Just
person.
wondering if anybody's, I don't think we're scheduling in-person things yet,
I
at
was
least not till
reaching
the
in
fall.
my imagination to see if there was something in the fall, but yes. So I don't see people in person so far again until September.
Yeah, I think that's when people are planning Broadway touring seasons and things like that. And certainly there is going to be a lot of outdoor stuff going on this summer in terms of
Absolutely.
music performances and hopefully poetry slams or any kind of event. People are really, last summer we didn't really know what to do in terms of gathering at all, even outside. This summer, I think we have a better